Stoveleg Media, igniting conversation.
This is True Crime Cast. Jamie and John, your hosts. What is up?
Not much, man. Enjoying the weather in Kentucky right now. Finally, 70 degrees, sunny, all is well.
Well, it's going to be like
for
this,
this week.
For like 10 minutes. Yeah, I never trust it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, tomorrow it could definitely snow or be 90 degrees.
Yeah.
Either one of those is legitimately a possibility.
Both. Let's go with that. No.
How are you doing, man? Sorry to always be an old man and talk about weather.
You always, without hesitation, go into weather.
Yeah. Sorry. We need to just go have our morning meetings at Hardee's sooner than later. Like, I'm at that stage of life.
I don't think, are we old enough yet? I think we're getting close.
We're getting there.
We're getting close.
We could go ahead and save us a seat.
You think they want to talk about crime?
Nah. They want to talk about the Farmer's Almanac, stuff like that.
I get it. But we're here to talk about crime, a pretty brutal one.
This is a case I cannot believe I had never heard of.
Right. Yeah. I had heard of it, but it's certainly the details of it are worse than I thought. So.
I'm excited to not only talk about the details of the case, but at the end when we get to do our own kind of wrap up thoughts, feelings, like, is there more to this case? I'm excited to hear your thoughts on that. Was
justice served? You'll find out after. We're not taking a break. John's just going to thank Patreon people now.
I do. I want to say thank you to Jad XHD. If I didn't say that right, I'm sorry. I'm giving it 120%.
I mean, of all the things you have trouble pronouncing, this one's justified, I think.
So, Jad, if I missaid something, just know that I'm sorry and I love you and I appreciate you. And if you have not joined Patreon, please do so for as little as $3 a month. You get a bonus episode and you get our regular feed early and ad-free.
And we got a bonus episode coming out this week. So
holy moly.
Now's a good time.
Yeah. This will be an excellent time. Get ready for that.
It's gonna be May.
We talking about Justin Timberlake?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Not today, though. Today we're talking about something much worse.
Yeah.
Why don't you get us rolling?
Justin Timberlake was played at my prom, and the story that we're going to be talking about was around prom night.
Yep, it was indeed. And we just had prom around in our area. Actually, the high schools, there are 4 high schools, they kind of rotate prom. It's prom season right now. So,
yeah. Gosh, man, I'm not excited about how much prom dresses are. I talked to my sister-in-law, and she's like, oh, it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad at all. Just like $1,000. I was like, what?
Yeah, no, we're going to make one.
Yeah. Hopefully my daughter just is like, you know what? I don't like proms. Not going. You know, that'd be great.
Good luck with that.
Otherwise, we'll have another true crime case when I talk about the boy that I put in the coal mine. We're going to be talking about Robert Pelley and his family. So let's start with Robert. Robert was a man of strong faith. He was a pastor at the time that this story takes place. He was married to a woman named Ava, who he met at Mount Vernon Nazarene University in the 1960s. In 1971, the two had their son, Jeffrey, and their daughter, Jackie. She was born in 1976. In 1980, Robert got a job as a computer programmer and moved the family to Cape Coral, Florida. In 1984, Ava was diagnosed with skin cancer and she refused treatment. She passed away in February of 1985. Right off the bat, just tragic loss in this guy's life.
Yeah, and I mean, you put the math together there. The kids one's a teenager and one's not even 10 yet. So you got young children losing their mother, and it's already kind of a sad situation to see what this family is going through. Within months of his wife's death, though, Robert met Dawn Huber. Dawn had recently lost her husband to carbon monoxide poisoning while working in a garage on a car. And Robert and Dawn fell in love pretty quickly. It was a very quick romance, and they were married by November of that year. So that is
Not even a year had passed and he's remarried.
Yeah, 9 months after his wife's passing. To be clear, there is no evidence that he had a relationship with Dawn beforehand. This wasn't something that he had been planning, but it happened. I'm sure some people judge them, but,
It sounds like they didn't even know each other.
Right.
I mean, this was within months of his wife's death is when they actually met.
yeah, so no judgment here, but it was fast. And the
He's like, man, I got kids I got to take care of. I need a woman.
Right, and so did she. He brought Jeffrey, who was 14, Jackie was 9, and then they actually didn't even meet their stepsisters, which obviously Dawn's kids, 5-year-old Jessica and 4-year-old Janelle, and 2-year-old Jolene, until after the wedding. That's a
Brady Bunch situation, and that's wild. I can't imagine. God, I don't even want to imagine everything it would take to end up in that state. But then for my kids to say, hey, you have siblings, here they are, and you now share a house with them and you've never met them.
And there's no going back on this. Like, we are a family and we're going to figure it out. The following year, so 1986, when you and I were just running around the woods as little kids, the entire Pelley family moved to Lakeville, Indiana, where Robert became the pastor at Olive Branch United Brethren Church, which is a really, really church name.
It is Olive Branch. I would wonder how many Olive Branch churches there are in the United States.
Oh, I bet it's a lot.
More than 24.
A lot of branches.
100. Things in the 50-person congregation were wonderful, but things in the Pelley home were not. So Detective Mark Sinner would eventually be on the Pelley family case. And he said, I know there was a lot of angst in the family between the teenager Jeff and his dad. I know a situation where Bob punched him one time, and I think neighbors saw a lot of that same thing as well, end quote. In an episode of a show called Evil Lives Here, Jessica, who was the daughter, now goes by Jessie, described the home as hostile with Jeffrey at the center of it. She said that Jeffrey directed a lot of his anger at her mother, which was his stepmother. Her name again was Dawn. Jeffrey was resistant to a new mother figure and resistant to Dawn's attempts to bond with, him as a teenager. And a lot of this is probably to be expected. I mean, he's suffered a loss of his mom. He probably didn't know this woman very well, being that within only months of his mom dying, her dad's now remarried. So in his defense, he's got a lot going on.
Yeah, he does. And like you said, I think up to a point, a lot of this behavior is expected, just animosity, struggling to adapt to a new situation, fighting the thought that your mom was being replaced has to be an issue here.
And obviously his dad's not handling it well. I mean, it's one thing to get upset at your teenage kid. I get it, but to turn to physical violence is not okay. So obviously seems like he's dealing with some inner turmoil underneath the surface too.
Yeah. And yeah, that's not a good look, especially as somebody leading a congregation of people.
I was going to say, and on top of all of that, you're a pastor and you can't have your kids running amok or it looks like your home's not in order. Shout out to my wife's mom and dad who were pastors. He lived in a parsonage, and yeah, your kids need to be well behaved.
As far as I know, you can't punch them in the face to make them do that.
Well, no, that's not a good idea.
Yeah, and that's what is said to have happened. Jesse also said that Robert was the disciplinarian in the home. He was the leader of the family. She claimed that he spanked all the children at some point or another with belts and paddles, and this made Jeffrey even more angry. This, I think, especially in the 80s, we're looking at the time frame here, this is common. I caught the end of a couple of those things myself. So I think everything we've talked about so far is kind of, I think you used the word expected, given the scenario, given the time that we were living in. But Jeff's behavior continued to escalate. He shot her cat with a BB gun, which scared the sisters quite a bit. He snuck up on them while they were camping. And Jesse said that he also pushed her down the basement stairs when the power was out. So that situation. It's dark. It's kind of scary anyway. She was a sitting duck for him, it sounds like. And she said his temper was getting out of control. In 1989, Jeff was caught by police stealing CDs and some money from a nearby home. Because of this, Robert grounded Jeff, telling him he could not go to his prom. And this crushed him because he had been looking forward to the prom for a really long time. And I've been talking about this a lot because my son just went to the prom. It was a really big deal. It was something everybody got excited about and all dressed up for it. You plan for this months in advance. I can't imagine anything in my life that I'm going to plan months in advance besides maybe a vacation, but you did for prom. There was a traditional school dance that would take place on Saturday, April 29th. And then there was going to be a school-sponsored outing to the Great American Amusement Park the following day. So their prom wasn't just a dance, it was a 2-day event. Eventually, Robert would concede and tell Jeff that he could go to prom, but only the dance part. He could not go to the amusement park. He couldn't go to the dinner before. He couldn't go to any after-prom parties. He could only go to the dance and then come straight back home, which that concession, I think, shows a little bit of mercy, a little bit of grace. And I think what may have pushed this across the line for Jeffrey, who I'm sure was thankful to get to go to the dance, he had to ride with his dad.
Yeah, the part of that was also, I'm driving you. You are not taking the car. I will take you to and pick you up. So I don't know. I think back to me as a teenager. Yeah, I guess there is some relief that I do get to go, but at the same time, the night's ruined. I mean, my dad's going to drop me off at the prom. I'd rather just not go.
And pick me up. Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking, is the embarrassment of getting dropped off in front of my friends who are pulling up, and people pull out fancy cars that you never knew existed.
I remember I didn't drive my 94 Ford Ranger. I drove my mom's car, which felt fancy, but it was like a Ford Taurus. So
yeah, right. Yeah.
In my mind, it was awesome. But looking back, I'm like, man, it wasn't like a Mustang or anything.
But it wasn't your truck. It was something different. It was a special occasion, and it was to be treated as such. So he was going to stand out. And as a teenage boy, this is not a way you want to stand out.
Yeah, for us, and I don't know how it was for you or how it is now, but like the prom was a kind of an afterthought. It was, you go to a really awesome dinner before prom, you go to prom for a little bit, make an appearance, but then you go out with your friends afterwards. Like we went bowling and did all kinds of fun stuff. So the main event sounds like it would be the dance, but really, for at least for my culture, it really wasn't. Like it was just the event that led to all the other fun things we did, which he didn't get to do.
Right. He only got to do the least fun part.
Yeah. That's wild. So Jeffrey did go to prom, but it wasn't the dance that would change his life forever. On the next morning, Sunday morning, April the 30th, Robert and his family were missing from Sunday service. So if you caught it earlier, he is the pastor. So if there's anybody that's expected to be at church on a Sunday, it's the pastor, or there are arrangements made well in advance to have someone fill in for you. And he's got a big family. It's he and his new wife and how many kids? Like 6?
5 total.
5?
So we're almost Brady Bunch level.
7 people that should be at church that are typically there, and not a single one of them are there. So this void would be huge. And if he was like my father-in-law, then he was probably the first one typically there and the last one to leave.
Yep.
Because you're literally living in a house that is on the same property as the church.
Yeah, that's important to note, that it's not like they had a flat tire on the way. A lot of pastors, and I don't know that this is the case everywhere, but I do know it is around this area, the Bible Belt-ish. They do provide housing for the pastor, so he's living on the ground, so he just has to walk out his door and walk in the door of the sanctuary.
Yeah, it is super common around here still. It's really cool. It also is a way for churches, if they bought the property a long time ago, they can somewhat decrease the salary because you're paying their housing. Anyway, there was a parishioner named David Hathaway. He noticed, of course, the absence, so he went next door to the family's house, knocked on the door. Nobody came to the door. He looked around. He noticed that every curtain was drawn. You couldn't see into the house. And I don't think this is like an invasion of privacy. I mean, your pastor's not there. Nobody showed up. You don't have plans for someone to fill in for you. You want people to come and check on you.
It's a welfare check. I think it's expected. This didn't strike me as out of the norm at all.
I would assume that David was probably what's called a deacon in the church, because he either had a key or found a key and was able to open up the house and go inside. And that may sound concerning, but that's just kind of normal around here.
It is, yeah.
So when he walked into the house, he saw Robert's glasses on the floor, and then he saw Robert's dead body in the hallway. He immediately called police. The police arrived, and that's when they discovered the body of Dawn clutching her young daughters, Janelle and Jolene. So the girls were just 8 years old and 6 years old at the time of their murders. Detective Center said no one should have seen what we saw that morning. The 4 family members in the home were shot at close range with a shotgun. And I don't want to over brutalize this or over sensationalize this, but let me just tell you, there's a big difference in shooting something or someone with a handgun versus a shotgun. This was probably the most gruesome thing you could imagine, because this would be devastating.
Yeah, shooting them with a single round of a revolver or a rifle of some kind, there's one projectile coming out of that. A shotgun has dozens of projectiles coming out with every shot, so it's definitely a different situation.
I'm going to say it, and I know it may be difficult to hear, but if you're not familiar with what a shotgun does, like Jamie said, I mean, if you are shot at point blank range in the head with a shotgun, your head is gone.
Right.
I mean, that's just the brutality of it. 3 of the children were not home the night before. So 9-year-old Jesse was sleeping over at a friend's house. Jackie was out of town visiting a friend in college. And Jeffrey had been at prom and the surrounding events. That's weird, because I thought we just spent a lot of time saying he wasn't going to the events after prom.
And if he was supposed to be picked up by Robert, then he should have been home that night, or else he never would have come home. And then there's this whole other ideal. And, it's the town, I don't think, knew exactly what the expectations were for Jeffrey going to prom, but I think they would later find out. When we get back from the break, we'll go into the investigation, who the suspects were, and how they finally identified a potential shooter. So the first thought that authorities had was that this could potentially be a murder-suicide, but there was no weapon found at the scene, and Robert had been shot twice. Dawn was found with the girls, so it's not something she would have done. So they were able to rule that out pretty quickly, which a lot of times, especially if there's a weapon nearby, that ends up being a focal point of the investigation and can really derail it. But again, they honed in on some other things pretty quickly. The doors were locked and the curtains were closed. And neighbors said this was pretty unusual, that they often had their curtains wide open. They welcomed people into their home, and the door, while it probably was locked while they were sleeping, was usually unlocked. They were coming and going, and parishioners would come over quite often, so they left it unlocked during the day. And so super odd scenario. A shotgun was missing from the home. They had a shotgun, owned one, and it was usually kept on the family gun rack, but it was missing. And based on the position of Robert's body, which was in this narrow little hallway, I don't know, hallway may not even be the right word. It's just a space between rooms, if you will. The killer most likely came from a bedroom that wasn't accessible from the outside of the house. So somebody had to come in a main door, get to a bedroom, and then find their way out from there. So the conclusion was that somebody had to get really deep into the house to commit these crimes, which I'm not sure, you would think about as an intruder being able to make their way back to the bedroom undetected. So another odd piece of the puzzle here for investigators. The one person who stuck out immediately for Detective Center was, like you said, it was Jeffrey Pelley. They had reports about the angst in the home, about the violence, and they knew Jeffrey was in trouble, and the prom situation was kind of questionable. So they took Jeffrey down to the police station and questioned him alongside his grandparents. When asked about his stepmother, Jeffrey said, I didn't get along really well with her. I mean, we talked hi, bye thing, but we never really talked to each other or anything. I mean, I didn't hate her or anything, but we tolerated each other. And that's his quote, that they lived in tolerance, which part of me says, wow, obviously he has problems with her. Another part of me says, if he had killed her, he's probably going to say they loved each other so he doesn't look like a suspect. So some interesting psychoanalysis to be done there. Investigators thought that even if he does get along with his stepmom, which he was pretty clear that he didn't really, that he had a motive. He was angry at his dad for the whole situation, especially for prom, that may have just pushed this over the edge. But outside of that, there was no evidence linking Jeffrey to this crime. There was no weapon, no eyewitnesses.
They didn't take fingerprints at the home. So
how do you not?
I don't get it. I mean, I know this was in the 80s, but still, they were very much doing fingerprints in the 80s.
Yes. I mean,
so late 80s.
We were on the verge of kicking in some DNA. So yeah, they could have taken fingerprints, but if they found his fingerprints in the house, he lives there. So that's hard to say anyway. But if they found fingerprints from somebody they couldn't identify, but again, it's a parsonage. People are in and out.
There's probably church members' fingerprints, but I think there could have been a lot done. I mean, it could have ruled people both in and out, I guess. If there was someone's fingerprints who was not associated with the church and had no explanation as to why they were there, that's a really good lead, but we don't have any of that.
We don't have any of that. And there's really just circumstantial evidence. We know Jeffrey was mad. We know that he wasn't really accounted for the night before. And that's kind of all they had. But he's their initial suspect. He's all they have at the beginning of the investigation. But there wasn't enough to arrest him, so they released him while they continued their investigation.
Jeffrey would go on to get married, have a son, and build a successful career as a computer consultant in Florida. Then one day in 2002, a new prosecutor looked at the cold case and decided, you know what? We need to make a charge here. So they ended up charging Jeffrey with 4 counts of murder, despite not having any new evidence. So he thought that, we've got the guy. This is the guy who did it. But is it going to hold up in court? That's my question. So Jeffrey was arrested. He was arrested at the Los Angeles International Airport. He was on his way home from a business trip. So he would be arrested. His trial would not start until 2006. And the prosecutors laid out the events of the night of April 29th, 1989 there in court. The assistant district attorney, Frank Schaefer, would say, quote, on Saturday, April 29th, the house was definitely buzzing. Many of the individuals going to the prom wanted to come by and show Robert their prom dresses, their tuxes, etc. So up until roughly 5 o'clock, there was a lot of traffic in and out of the home, end quote. He went on to say that by 5:30, everyone was gone and Jeffrey's car was gone as well. Jeffrey was seen at a local gas station around 5:20 p.m., and he said, quote, the house was locked up as tight as a drum. It became very clear that the murders had to have happened between, say, 5 and 5:20, end quote.
And that's before the prom. So a couple things here. One, this is 13 years between the crime and then investigating the guy that you suspected immediately after. That is...
To put it in perspective, I know that I started kindergarten in 89 and I graduated high school in 02. That 13 years sounds like a lot, but that seems like a lifetime.
It's so long. And if he did do it, you have to think by this point, he thinks he got away with it. If he didn't do it, you would think that he's still hoping they solve it and finds out who hurt his family. But obviously this new prosecutor fully believes it was him. The state presented a theory that because Jeffrey wanted to go to prom and he wasn't allowed to go by himself, that he decided to take the shotgun off the wall and shoot everybody in the house. They argued that he had hidden the gun, cleaned himself up, got ready for prom, and then went out to meet up with his friends. All of his friends say that he wasn't acting any different. So if he did commit this murder, he's able to be himself with his friends. They didn't notice anything was going on. He was happy to be at prom. His dad hadn't dropped him off like he had threatened to. So this was, they thought Jeffrey was having a good night.
I'm trying to think back. I don't think I could murder anyone and then live life like normal. You know what I mean? And
Right.
I certainly don't think I could do it in just a matter of minutes.
Yeah, I think this is certainly some diagnosable behavior here of being able to separate yourself from what you had just done and to be able to function at all, let alone to function normally in prison as if you were happy about what's going on in your life. Prosecutors also argued that there was nobody else who had motive. There was nobody else who had the opportunity to commit these crimes. Jeffrey's defense attorney, whose name was Alan Baum, argued that it was ridiculous to think that Jeffrey would kill his family and then go to the prom as if nothing had happened. And this is one of his quotes from trial. From all indications, the people that were with Jeff that night described him as just one of the group. They were having a good time. To think he could spend that whole evening doing all the things they did and just having fun like a kid after murdering his family is preposterous. However, the jury believed the prosecution. He was found guilty for the murders of Robert, Dawn, Janelle, and Jolene, and was sentenced to 160 years in prison. So essentially a 40-year life sentence for each, run consecutively.
In 2008, his conviction was reversed by the Indiana Court of Appeals. But the following year, the Indiana Supreme Court then ruled and upheld the conviction. So there was a lot of legal back and forth. And in 2024, Jeffrey filed a petition for post-conviction relief with the help of the Francis Watson from the McKinney Wrongful Conviction Clinic. This post-conviction relief is a legal process allowing convicted individuals to challenge their conviction or sentence based on issues not addressed in direct appeals like new evidence, ineffective counsel, or constitutional violations. So this was filed in trial court, and these motions can lead to vacated sentences or new trials. Jeffrey was given a hearing to present his case, proving that the prosecution misrepresented evidence that his previous defense attorneys mishandled his case back in his case in 2006. So there were several key arguments as part of his case. What are some of those, Jamie?
Yeah, the first piece was a pair of Jeffrey's jeans that they found. People who witnessed the house that night said that Jeffrey was wearing a pink shirt and jeans that they saw him in as they were coming and visiting, showing off their dresses and showing off their tuxes and that kind of thing. In 1989, there was a luminol test done of the Pelley family washing machine cylinder, and that had not actually determined that there had been blood or even laundry detergent in the machine the day of the murder. So if they say that he committed this murder and what he was wearing, that people saw jeans, and cleaned up after it, there was really no evidence to suggest that there was blood in the washer. Despite this, prosecutors at the 2006 trial told the jury that he had washed his jeans after shooting the family, which was provably incorrect, and his defense attorneys didn't point it out. In the podcast Counterclock, which does more than a whole season on this, Delia D'Ambra points out that in the original police file, there is no report of anyone finding jeans in the washer. And the 2006 lab report found that the jeans had no blood on them. In addition, the report said the jeans were unwashed and there were coins and an intact receipt in the pockets, kind of proving that they had not been run through a washer that day. In response to the criticism that he should have brought this up at trial, defense attorney Alan Baum says, If we look back on how I handled it, I guess we would have to include that I didn't make the factual connection and argument, and that I could have questioned the blue jean issue more, or let's say better in hindsight, but sometimes hindsight's 2020. I can't change history. There may be one of the areas I could have hit harder and didn't, end quote. So the jeans were a big piece of the appeals, and sounds like was a pretty controversial piece of the trial.
Jamie, I want to just play devil's advocate. I mean, how do they definitively know that the jeans he was seen in prior to everything that happened were the same jeans that were found? If you see me committing a crime, I have legit like 6 or 7, like I have 6 or 7 pairs of jeans, but they are the exact same brand. They're not going to look one pair doesn't look any different than the other, unless, if I had a hole in one that I didn't have in the others. That's a pretty interesting fact that you could know, but I don't know, like, how do they know for sure that these were the right pants? And, does that make sense?
First of all, rich guy bragging about all your jeans. I think I'm
they're
doing it wrong. I just rotate like 2 pair. Anyway, so I totally hear what you're saying. I think that in my house and in your house, we each have a teenage son in our homes. I have no idea what their jeans situation is. Their moms might. So anybody that may know he only has 1 pair of jeans or he has 4 pair of jeans, nobody's able to speak to that. So you're right. The jeans they found very well may not be the ones that he was wearing that night.
And what about the shirt? Did they find the shirt? If they found a pink shirt, is that what he said? A pink shirt?
Yeah, and that seems like that would stand out a little bit more than a pair of jeans.
So if they found that and a pair of jeans in his laundry basket, or wherever they keep the clothes, then it would make sense that, hey, this is the outfit people saw. And then, but I don't know. It just seems,
and that makes the timeline
shaky.
shaky as well. If he did change clothes and then commit the murders and then put on his prom stuff, then that's a whole different timeline, I think.
So let's talk about that timeline that was established during the trial. So there was one friend that said he saw Jeffrey leaving the house between 4:45 and 5 p.m. There were witnesses that established that all 4 of the victims were seen alive shortly before 5 p.m.
And the prosecution's theory was that the murder occurred between 5 and 5:20.
Right. Another said they saw Jeffrey's car in the driveway at 5:15. A gas station clerk said Jeffrey was there 5 minutes from his home at 5:17 p.m. So, I mean, I'm not trying to get into a My Cousin Vinny situation, but both of these facts cannot be true at the same time.
Right.
He was either in his driveway at 5:15 or the gas station at 5:17, but it's not possible to be at both at those times. According to the state in 2006, between 4:55 and 5:15 p.m., Jeffrey had to shoot all 4 victims, pick up the shell casings, shower, change clothes, put a small load of clothes in the washing machine, pack his tuxedo, get in his car, ditch the shotgun and spent shell casings somewhere where police could not find them, and then drive to the gas station. That feels like a lot to get done in 20 minutes. I'm going to say that I agree with that. That is
a very tight
lot.
timeline.
And police have tried to find this weapon. There's a pond close to the house that they suspected someone could throw a shotgun in. They drugged that pond, didn't find anything, right? So I don't know. It does seem like a lot to have done in 20 minutes. Of course, you don't have to have done these things in that order either. Does that make sense? So you could have kept the shotgun in your car and ditched it later that evening. You didn't have to do all of these things in 20 minutes.
Your tuxedo could have already been packed. So maybe that's not a part of the timeline either.
I think it's possible that you also just pack the clothes and throw those away too. But I think you would have definitely had to have showered. I think that makes sense.
That's key. Yeah.
So anyway, another aspect of the case pointed out by the counter clock was the murder weapon. Jessie claims the day that she left for her sleepover, The shotgun was hanging on the wall in her parents' bedrooms. Others don't recall if the gun was there or not. Thomas Kebb was a friend of Robert, and he told the counterclock that Robert had given him a bag with a rifle, a pistol, and a shotgun in it, and he asked him to keep it for a while. He told the same story to Jeffrey's defense attorney in deposition in 2003. Jeffrey had told investigators that his dad had removed all the guns from the home in 1988 when Jeffrey tried to commit suicide with the pistol. So Kebb, again the friend of Robert, says the bag of guns that was given to him was in his in-laws' basement just down the road from Robert's house. If the 20-gauge shotgun was there, then Jeffrey couldn't have used it to kill his family. No one has checked on the fact that we're aware of, and neither side called Kebb for testimony in 2006. If that's true and there was no gun in the home, that's a huge piece of evidence.
It is. And the timeline on when he gave him the stuff, I think and he potentially gave Kebb the weapons, was kind of iffy as well. So
you're like, if I did that to you though, you're going to remember that.
Right.
Like if I gave you a gun because of a situation like this, I feel like you're going to remember when this was, because that's a pretty big deal.
It is. It's not an everyday situation. So I totally get that. So far we have a discrepancy about the genes, about where Jeffrey was when, what the timeline could have been, and then where were the guns before and after. So lots of questions there. Pelley also claimed that his lawyer failed to look into possible connections that his father had with organized crime in Florida, offering an alternative theory. Remember, he had moved to Florida where he worked with computer programming and, according to Jeffrey, potentially had some ties to organized crime. While he was down there working for a bank in Florida, he was being investigated by federal officials for money laundering. Again, this is Robert being accused of this. A woman named Toni Beeler came forward to police in 2003 after she saw that Jeffrey had been arrested. She said she had information about Robert that could help the case, and told authorities that in 1989 she was a saleswoman selling photographic directories and trying to get Robert to buy one for the church. Robert didn't want one, allegedly telling Toni that he had another life prior to becoming a minister, so he didn't want to put his face out there. She said he told her that if he had moved money for the mob and got his family out of Florida to avoid that, he didn't want his directory in case the mob was looking for him. He didn't want his face to be public at all. He allegedly told her, and again, this is according to the photographer, they're going to kill each member of my family. I'm going to watch, and then they're going to kill me, end quote. Toni says that the Pelleys were murdered just days after this conversation. She also testified that investigators did not take her seriously when she tried to come forward with this story at the time of the murders. And John, I have to imagine they're getting a lot of tips. They're getting a lot of information in. Is this hard to believe when you hear it, that they potentially, he's involved with the mob? Like, that seems out there on the face of it.
When I think of the mob, I think of Chicago and New York. I guess that's just because of the movies I've watched. I don't think of the mob as operating in Florida. I mean, I'm not saying that's impossible, but this just seems outlandish.
That's where people go to retire. When mobsters retire, maybe they go down there and they set up their retirement village mafia shop. So, yeah, this is, again, on the surface, but Toni was very insistent upon this. And as an investigator, I have to think that this is out there enough to where I don't make it the first thing I look into.
I'm not trying to be funny, but like legit, I say some really dumb stuff to salesmen when I don't want to do something. I could totally see myself saying this as a joke just to get them out the door. I'm not saying that's what's happening. I'm saying I'm an idiot, and that's something I would do.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. During the post-conviction hearing, Officer Tony Decker testified that he had interviewed Toni about this interaction, and he expressed doubts that Robert would have shared that much information with a saleswoman he didn't know trying to get him to buy a church directory. Tony said her testimony was never pursued by the Pelley's defense team in 2006. So she brought this to authorities. It was immediately dismissed. I mean, think about that though, John, if it's true. If you are in hiding from the mob, are you going to tell this random person that you are hiding from the mob?
Yeah, it seems a little outlandish, honestly. That's why I'm like, well, was he just trying to get this woman to leave him alone and not buy this stuff? And he made up a crazy scheme.
That's what he's doing. It worked. But yeah, these are all the issues that were laid out during the post-conviction relief hearings that he was granted.
Yeah, after 2 days of hearings, St. Joseph County Judge Stephanie Steele ruled that Jeffrey did not meet the burden of proof, proving that his claims warrant a new trial. In her ruling, Steele writes that Jeffrey bears the burden of showing how the trial result was unreliable and how the outcome would have been different. He has failed to do that here, end quote. So he plans to appeal this denial, but for now, for the last 20 years while in prison, he has maintained his innocence. However, his stepsister, Jessie, is certain that her stepbrother, Jeffrey, is guilty of these murders. She said that she knew he was guilty when he wouldn't look at her in the face or in the eyes at the trial. She told Counterclock, quote, "If you didn't do it, you're going to look at someone and be like, dude, hey, I didn't do it." Nope. He kept his head down and didn't look at me one time, end quote. So while Jessie is certain that she saw the shotgun in the house before she left for the sleepover, Jeffrey's biological sister, Jackie, says she can't recall if there was one there or not before she left for the weekend. She believes her brother is innocent and maintains the website justiceforjeff.org.
Yeah, so this is a case that is at least officially solved. We've talked about cases in the past where innocence was being pursued. We've brought people on to talk about individual cases where they thought that their loved one or their person of interest or somebody they're advocating for was innocent. I think Counterclock kind of went down that road, which is a great show, by the way. We don't usually pump other shows. Counterclock's real good. What do you think? Was there let's tackle this in order. Was there enough to convict him? Should he get a new trial? And did he do it?
I like that a lot, actually, because I think you could have different answers for all of those questions.
Right.
So the first one, was there enough for him to have been arrested and convicted?
Convicted, yeah.
Was there enough for him to have been convicted? I'm going to say no, because I think there's a lot more detective work that could have been done in the home that didn't definitely point to him. So if they had found blood in a shower, then, even maybe that could have swung things for me. But they didn't do fingerprints. They don't know if anybody from outside the church was in the home. They didn't do enough to show that it was or was not him.
The jury heard that the jeans were washed and potentially had blood on them, and the defense didn't argue that.
Yeah.
So they were told without objection that they're bloody jeans.
Maybe that answer is twofold. Maybe at the original trial, I would have felt differently than I would have, at this one. So I don't know. I personally think there was enough reasonable doubt that could have been thrown out there where I think that I might have had to say not guilty, but in my heart, I think maybe he did do it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that they just needed to do a better job of proving to me that he did.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if I am on that jury, I hear about his outbursts, his anger at his father, the violence in the home, the fact that there was a shotgun missing, the fact that his jeans were bloody. I think I buy it. I think I find him guilty in that first trial. I don't know anything about the mafia situation. I don't know the jeans didn't have blood. The washer didn't have blood. Nobody told me that.
Yeah.
Because I think that could give me some reasonable doubt, but I don't have any of that at the first trial.
I guess I'm going back. I think you're right. I probably would have said guilty at the first trial.
Yeah.
But, if you throw in the fact that maybe the gun wasn't there because it had been given to the friend, the pants that were tested without blood, like all of those factors totally changes things.
And that's the question when he does these post-conviction relief pieces is if there was a piece missing, so this Gene's argument didn't happen, would that potentially change the outcome of the trial?
It puts doubt in my mind.
Agreed. And that's what that recent ruling said. No, that does not show that it could have changed things. I disagree. I think that's a stronger piece than it's being led to be. I know his original defense attorney kind of dismissed it, but I think he should have been convicted based on what was presented at the first trial. I also think this Gene's piece by itself is enough to get him a new trial, because if they're bloody, I mean, that seems pretty clear. If they're not, that is very different.
And like, if you're Keb, the friend who said he has the guns, how do you not let authorities know, like, I don't know, once Jeff, well, I guess it's, I mean, I don't know. Where are the guns now? If you had them, where are they? Can you show me proof of you sold them when? Is there any paperwork that you can show me, or bring the guns yourself and show me that you have them still? Yeah,
we're not doing paperwork in the 80s. It's just a handshake agreement if you're selling them. So I don't think that's there. But if you can bring the guns, also a shotgun is not a rifle. You can't use ballistics to say the threading on the inside matches, which I think is crap anyway, but you can't do that for a shotgun anyway. So you're just seeing, when did the shotgun from the home we believe is the murder weapon, when did that leave?
Yeah. And if he did give it to Keb, and then Keb could at least say, no, I sold those guns after their deaths in 1992. Here's who I sold it to. And police could go to that person and say, did you buy this gun? What was it? Where is it now? They could track that down if they wanted to.
Right. And I think that's an important piece as well. The timeline, I'm not as rigid on. I think people didn't have phones. They weren't looking at their phone, looking at the time back then. I think it's a lot more difficult to track times. Eyewitnesses.
Time wasn't universal back then.
Right. Yeah.
We did, like, nowadays we have iPhones that, tell us precisely what time it is. Back then you had a dozen clocks in your house. All of them could be set at different times.
And there's no way for you to know, unless it's like on the news, that it's right or wrong.
The official time, if you remember, was, at least in my town, was the bank. You set your watch to the bank.
Time and temperature.
You could call it and get the official time. My grandfather was a ham radio operator. He had the official world clock in his house. But really, most families just had arbitrary times, fairly close together, but not precise.
Right.
So a 2-minute difference, like we were talking about at the gas station, that's completely normal in the 1980s.
Yeah, that's very arbitrary. The timeline doesn't move me at all. And then the mafia thing.
It just seems so outlandish. And there's only one person who said that,
Right.
What about the FBI and investigating the bank? Would they have records of?
They would have to.
Okay, we were investigating this bank specifically because Robert did X. Where is that information?
Or he was involved with these people that were also investigating. That's available. It should be.
Yeah, FOIA that and find out.
Right? I like that a lot. Yeah, so here's where I land. I think I would have convicted him. I think based on the genes and the gun that maybe he should get a new trial, but I also think he did it.
Oh, yeah, I think he's 100% guilty.
Yeah.
It's Occam's razor. It's the simplest solution. And like you said, I don't buy 100% the series of events laid out in court. I think those could have varied somewhat, but I think he was pissed off that he didn't get to go to the prom and do the things he wanted to do. So he murdered his family and went to the prom and then went to Kings Island the next day and lived his life.
Yeah, I completely agree.
I think I would love to know what in the crap is wrong with this guy in his brain that was where he landed. But I think it's the most likely scenario.
Yeah, and I do think he did it, and I think he should have been convicted at the first trial. Should he get a new trial? I think probably, but because I think he did it, I'm not losing sleep over it. Yeah. That's where I'm at.
Me too.
So I think justice has been served.
Yeah. Did he, I don't know. We didn't talk about it, but did he ever fail or pass polygraph tests? And maybe he's so crazy he did pass one. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think he did it, though.
Agreed. Find it interesting we wound up on the same page. I thought we were going to differ on this one.
No, I think he's guilty. I don't know that in the second trial I could have said that, though.
Yeah, maybe they have things to combat the genes. Maybe they did have things they didn't share. I don't know. But yeah, this was, like you said, how is this not one of those stories out there that everybody knows about?
How do you, you've been on a jury, yes or no?
I've never been actually on one.
I wonder, like, I would be the juror that would be needy and want to, like, raise my hands and ask questions. Like, well, did you all find the pants and the shirt? Just the pants? Where's the shirt?
Right.
Like, I would be the juror asking questions that I need answers to make my decision.
You say pink. Was it? I mean, it was salmon, all right?
Is there a picture? Can you prove that's the shirt? Were there other pink shirts in his laundry?
And those, I think, are actually important. So we'd love to hear what everybody else thinks. Do you buy this? Do you think that Jeffrey did it? Are you in the innocence camp? Obviously, we're not, but we referenced it several times. Go listen to Counterclock, see if that sways you. I have, and it didn't, but it is very well done. So it's a full season on this case, and you get to hear from those involved, which is always fascinating to me. So, John, yeah, this was great. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah. Don't forget, guys, later this week, we're going to have a bonus episode available only to our Patreon members. Jamie kind of gave a tease to that earlier. Some Justin Timberlake news.
Oh, no, it's going to be May. Like, I was just saying it's going to be May.
Oh,
because
so we're not covering Justin Timberlake.
I mean, we can. I don't think that's a full episode. He got arrested for drunk driving. And
yeah, we're not going to be covering that, but it is going to be May, which is a throwback to Justin Timberlake. I got
sorry for the miscommunication.
All of that to say, go check out Patreon, sign up now so that you can be one of the first to know what case is going to be the bonus episode.
As soon as John finds out. Yeah. We appreciate you guys.
We love you. We'll see you next time. And until next crime, this has been True Crime Cast.
You've listened to True Crime Cast, distributed by Stoveleg Media. Check out stoveleg.com to find out more about your hosts and to find other podcasts to listen to. Stoveleg Media, igniting conversation.